Okay, welcome back to the shop. Been a long time since I made a video here. Lots of stuff going on. I'm keeping busy. Doing some small jobs out here in the shop. I did finally officially form my own business now, so I can take work for some locals. I've done a few small jobs here and there. Haven't got real busy yet, but in the theme of that, that's what this project is for. And before I get started, I'll let you know that I'm trying out a new microphone. See how the audio on this video turns out. I got a wireless lapel mic I'm using instead of the camera mounted mic. So hopefully that'll be a little more better for the voiceovers here, for the narrative. I don't know how it's going to deal with picking up the other noise, but got the wood stove going and the blowers going here, but hopefully that'll help keep some of that environmental noise out. So one of the services I like to offer in my business is, since I'm gearing more for repairs, I like to offer some small line boring. I've already done a job where I had to bore and bush a quick hitch for a Bobcat skid loader. I was able to set that up on the Kearney Trekker horizontal and do that, but it wasn't ideal, and I had to do one side at a time, turn it around and reset it up for the other side. It was a lot of setup to make sure the two were straight, boring them separately like that. I'd like to be able to bore that all at once in one setup, and also be able to do that out on customers' sites. So I figure I'll start out with doing some small bores. I've got a 4-foot piece of turned, ground, and polished rod here, 4 foot long by 1 inch diameter. So the plans with that is we'll turn the one end down somewhere around a 1/2 inch, 9/16 diameter, so I can chuck that in a magnetic drill press, which I've got. So as part of another project, there'll be another video, I'm making a boring bar, line boring bar, to run in a magnetic drill press. As part of that project, I've got to turn the end of this bar down to fit in the chuck of the drill press. So this is a 1 inch. This is a 1 inch turned, ground, and polished bar. So the end of this will need to turn down to about 3/4 inch, or maybe slightly less, about 1.5 inches or so long, so you can chuck it up in the magnetic drill press. Problem is the stick out on the other end of the headstock. Now this hangout isn't too excessive. I could probably run it the way it is. I mean, it's got some vibration to it. I don't think it whipped too much, but I really should support it, and I've been meaning to make a device to support it. There's a couple of different solutions that we have. For something this short, I can make up a device to go on here. I believe it may be called cat's head or something similar like that. It would mount to the back of the spindle here, and it'll have some set screws to come out here and hold the end of the shaft from vibrating, which would be more than adequate in this situation. But in order to run even longer stock sticking out of the end of the back side of the spindle here, I'd like to make something to sit on the floor and come up and hold this with some bearings, so it'll run without whipping around. I could probably make some wheels up myself, but I found some nylon wheels on Amazon. They're about $3 a piece. They're about 30 millimeter diameter, 10 millimeters wide. They got some roller bearings in them. So I'll probably get those there so you can run 2 of them roller bearings on here to support the bottom of this, just to keep it from whipping. So I don't have the rollers yet. I'm going to need a way to mount them. Digging through my scrap pile, I've got this piece of chopped up angle iron here. This is actually the end of it was above a window, a basement window on a house that was holding the bricks up, and I saved this piece out, and I've been using it for various things. This is the last piece of it, so I want to make a box, make a metal box, I don't know, about 2.5, 2 3/4 long, and maybe 3/4 to an inch wide on the inside dimensions there. That way I can put a couple of holes in there and mount the wheels, the rollers. So I think if I take this piece, I'm gonna cut a couple of 2-inch sections off of here. You see, this is already about an inch high. Then I'll weld them together into a box. Just for the sake of the length of this video, I'm not going to show us cutting this up and cleaning it up and stuff. There's lots of fabrication videos out there, and guys that do a better job than I do doing this stuff that you can go watch if you want to see doing some cutting and welding. Okay, so I got these trimmed down to size. Cut them on the bandsaw. Clean them up with a flap disc. And do some more cleanup. There's some pitting in them from the rust. But so the idea is I'm going to make a piece of box like this. I could have bought some rectangle tubing stock, but this is what I had. It's free, so I keep this stuff around. So them wheels that I've got are 30 millimeters in diameter, so 2 of them together is 60 millimeters, which is just under 2 3/8 of an inch. So I've got 2 5/8. So that'll give me plenty of room to put the 2 wheels in here, plus have a little bit of clearance between them and a little bit of clearance to the walls on there. And once the wheels are in here, I'll probably make a little V notch in here just to get some smaller bar stock to ride down between the wheels. But I'm going to weld them up, grind them down, bevel these out, weld them up. I'm not going to show the welding. Again, if you want to see welding, there's other channels that can do a lot better job of showing you how to weld. Like Welding Tips and Tricks is a really good channel. Okay, so this is the project so far. Here's the piece of square tubing, little piece of rectangular tubing that I made out of the angle iron. Here's some plastic wheels I bought. They're about $3 or so a piece. They weren't too expensive. So the idea is to mount these. The idea is to mount these on here with just a slight gap between them. So then when I run something round through the back of the headstock on the lathe, it comes out the back of the headstock. You can sit on here and run on it like this, and give it some support for the back piece of stock. So far, the only thing I've spent money on is these wheels. I had to get some shoulder screws to go through there, so I have a couple of shoulder screws that'll mount through here. I'll show you on this side. Some shoulder screws that will mount through these wheels and mount them in the middle here. I got a little piece of tubing I'll use as a spacer on there. 8mm tubing for these 8mm shoulder screws. Center these wheels in here, so those will go on there. I'll have the 2 holes for the axles on the wheel, and slightly down further I'll have another hole, and I'll kind of cut a V out of here. You can see that I'll kind of cut a V out of there, and that V notch will give it some room for small stock to drop between these wheels. I don't know, I'll keep maybe a 100 thousandths or so gap between these wheels just so they don't rub. Okay, so I just opted to drill this right to 8mm. These holes might be a touch oversized, but plenty accurate for what we're doing here. So I just drilled 3 8mm holes here. This will be the outside ones, will be for the wheels. Cut a V into this third one, as I mentioned before. So I gotta cut these spacers for this on either side of the bearings in this wheel here. So I'm gonna use my little south bend 9" just to cut these stainless tubing off. Hopefully it won't 475. Hopefully it won't squeal too much. This tool might not be as sharp as it should be. So I have accounted for the width of my parting blade here and my size, so it should be relatively simple. Yes, I thought the tool could use to be a little sharper, so. That wasn't bad. Well, we'll make 4 more of them and deburr them and do some assembly. Okay, so here's it's all put together. So remember, I drilled that 8mm hole in here. All it is, I just drew a couple of 30-degree lines on there and cut it out by hand with my angle grinder and dressed it up with a file. So I've got to work pretty well. There's those rollers with the spacers. Went together fairly snug. I could have probably given a little more clearance on those spacers, but I got them in there, so they turn nice, and see how the stock is going to be able to sit in there and run on these rollers without hitting anything. So I might go back at a later time and put a U-shaped bracket on top of this just to kind of contain the stock. We'll see. I haven't decided on that yet, but I need to be able to get this behind my lathe and adjust it for height to the to the spindle, to the exits, the rear end of the spindle and the headstock there. So I'm going to want the base to be fairly heavy on it. So I've got this old piece of channel chopped up out of an old machine pallet. It's not real straight, so, but I'm going to cut a couple pieces out of this and make a base out of it. I got a piece of pipe here. I'll use this to make the vertical stand for that. This is a fairly heavy piece of hydraulic tubing, but I need an adjustment mechanism. So looked around in my scrap piles and this old camper jack. It's not real ideal. The head doesn't swivel. It's fixed on the shaft, but it's got what appears to be a fairly stout thread on it. It's not a regular screw thread, so, and it fits inside this pipe. So I'll probably go and cut these legs off here, weld this into here, and that'll give me the adjustment that I need. I'll trim this top down to size and weld this on here, and that'll give me my adjustment piece. And really, other than the rollers, the shoulder screws, and the tubing that I got to make the spacers out of, everything else is made from scrap that I found around the shop. And so I won't have a whole lot of money into it, just some consumables and some time. Okay, so I got everything sorted out here. Chop the top off that trailer jack, left it in the tube here. Gonna weld that in the top of this pipe. I'll wait till I get it all welded together so I can set the length of that on the back of the lathe. Here's that angle iron. It's a little twisted. I'll have to straighten that out some, but that'll make me a fairly heavy base to put this pipe on. Maybe I'll put some gussets on it. I don't know yet. We'll see. I don't expect it to be getting a lot of forces, but I ended up bending this hoop up here and adding this safety hoop. Put it on with a couple of 1/4-inch screws. This is sized just larger than the maximum size stock that can go through the headstock on my spindle. So just in case the stock starts whipping around, it'll stay contained in here. I might make this slotted later so I can reduce this height, but we'll see if I need to do that or not. This will weld on top of this old trailer jack part that I cut up, and then it'll all mount in this pipe on top of here. So I'll get the MIG welder fired up and put this together, and I'll bring it back. So here's the whole thing put together. I'll give you a look at it here. So this is the turn, ground, and polish stock I'm going to use for making a line boring tool. So you see it sticks out of the headstock a little ways. It's not real long, but with this set up, I'll be able to put much longer pieces in there. If I want a shorter piece, I might come up with like I think it's called a cat's head or something like that. That'll go in the back of here. That'll hold stock. Doesn't stick out so far, but right now this will take the long pieces. Of course, it's clamped in the 3-jaw chuck in the lathe, but all I did back here is bring this up and adjust the height and use my 6-inch scale here and just got it centered off a scale. So that should work pretty good for putting long stock in there. See you next time.